Your mother owned 9 dresses, and every single one of them she had made with her own 2 hands. You never once heard her say she had nothing to wear. You watched her walk into the AME church on a Sunday morning in 1956 looking like she had stepped out of a magazine, and the truth that took you 50 years to understand is that she had. She was the magazine. She just sewed the pages herself. Before we dive in, hit subscribe and drop a comment letting me know where you are watching from. The sewing machine sat in the corner of the front room, a black Singer with gold lettering mounted in a wooden cabinet, with a cast-iron treadle underneath that your mother worked with her foot in a rhythm so steady you could have set a clock by it. That machine had belonged to your grandmother. Before that, it had belonged to your great-grandmother, who had bought it with money she saved 1 dime at a time, in a time and a place where a black woman owning anything at all was a small and quiet act of defiance. When the machine came to your mother, it came with a lesson attached. You do not buy what you can make. You do not throw away what you can mend. And you never ever let this world see you looking like you do not have a mother who loves you. You fell asleep to the sound of that Singer more nights than you could count. You would be in bed, the house dark, and through the wall you could hear it. The hum of the wheel, the soft thump of the treadle, the little pause while she turned the fabric, the hum again. Your mother sat up after you, and your brothers and sisters were asleep, and she sewed. She sewed your Easter dress. She sewed your school clothes. She sewed the dress she would wear to your graduation, 11 years before you graduated, because good fabric went on sale, and she bought it when she could, and she made it when she had time, and she put it in the cedar chest and waited. That sound through the wall was the sound of a woman building a life for her children, 1 stitch at a time. You did not know that then. You just knew it meant your mother was still awake, and that as long as that sound was going, everything in the world was safe. She did not learn to sew from a magazine. She learned it where every black girl learned it. She learned a little of it in home economics at the colored school, where the teacher, Miss Carter, had a way of putting her hand over yours on the fabric and guiding it through. But she learned the real lessons at the church sewing circle on Thursday evenings. 6 or 7 women in the fellowship hall with their patterns and their scissors and their scraps, a pot of coffee, and all the news of the week. The sewing circle was where a young woman learned how to set a sleeve so it did not pucker. It was where she learned to read a butterick pattern and which simplicity patterns ran small, and how to lay the tissue on the fabric so you wasted nothing. But it was also where she learned everything else: how to carry a hard week, how to stretch a dollar, how to raise a child. The sewing circle taught you to sew, and while it taught you to sew, it taught you how to be a woman. The dress was just what your hands did while your heart got its education. There is a thing the magazines from that time will never tell you. In most of the country in 1955, a black woman could not try on a dress in a department store. She could walk in, she could look, she could even hand over her money, but she could not step into the fitting room and see how it looked on her body, because the store did not want her body in their mirror. In some towns, she could not return a dress either. She bought it blind, or she did not buy it at all. So she did not buy it at all. She went home, and she took out the Singer, and she made something better than anything hanging on that store's rack. And here is the part that should make you sit up straight in your chair. The very same years that black women were being turned away from fitting rooms across America, a black woman named Anne Lowe was sewing a wedding dress for the future First Lady of the United States. Jacqueline Bouvier walked down the aisle in 1953 to marry John Kennedy in a gown of ivory silk taffeta with 50 yards of fabric in the skirt, and that gown was designed and sewn by the hands of a black woman. Most of America did not know. Anne Lowe did not get her name in the paper the way a white designer would have, But every black woman who sewed knew. They knew that the most photographed dress in America that year had come from hands that looked like theirs, and it gave them something. It gave them the knowledge that the skill in their own fingers was not a poor woman's necessity. It was the art. It was the same art that dressed the First Lady. They just did it in a front room, after the children were asleep, by the light of a single lamp. Your mother could make one dress look like five. This was not a trick. This was a quiet kind of genius, and it lived in every black household in America. She made detachable collars, white cotton collars, crisp and clean, that buttoned onto the neckline of a plain dark dress, a second collar and lace, a third with a little embroidery she had done herself. The same navy dress on Monday with the plain collar was a different dress on Wednesday with the lace, and a different dress again on Sunday with a brooch pinned at the throat. She had cuffs that matched the collars. She had a wide belt that pulled the waist in and changed the whole line of the thing. She had one good silk scarf, and she knew more ways to tie it than you ever bothered to count. A woman watching her in church would have sworn she had a closet full of clothes. She had 9 dresses, and the imagination of a woman who had never once in her life been allowed to waste anything. Friday night was for the shoes. Every pair of shoes in the house lined up on newspaper on the kitchen floor, and the tin of kiwi polish open, and the smell of it filling the room. Your father's church shoes, your mother's good pumps, your Mary Jane's, your brother's Sunday shoes. She did them all, one by one, the polish worked in with a soft cloth in small circles, and then buffed until you could nearly see your face in the toe. Scuffed shoes, she said, told the world you had given up, and no child of hers was going to walk into the house of the Lord on a Sunday morning telling the world anything of the kind. You did not have new shoes often, but your old shoes were always clean. And then there was the hat. You cannot talk about how a black woman walked into church in 1957 without talking about the hat. The hat was not an accessory. The hat was a crown. And every woman in that congregation wore hers like she knew it, wide brims and small veils and silk flowers and a feather that curved just so. Some women made their own. Some saved for a year to buy one good one from the black milliner 2 streets over. The hat was the one place a woman let herself be bold, be grand, be seen. 6 days a week, the world told a black woman to shrink, to be quiet, to use the back door. And on the 7th day, she put on a hat the size of a serving platter, and she walked through the front door of her own church with her head held high and her crown upon it. And for one morning a week, in one room in America, she was exactly as magnificent as she had always been. You sat next to her in the pew. You were small, and the brim of her hat threw a shadow over you both, and you felt like you were sitting under the wing of something holy. She kept a mending basket by her chair in the front room. It sat there always, next to where she listened to the radio in the evening. A loose button, a fallen hem, a small tear at a seam, a sock worn thin at the heel. Nothing in that house went into the trash because it was broken. Broken was not the end of a thing. Broken was just a thing waiting for your mother to have a quiet half hour. She would sit with the radio low and the basket in her lap, and her hands would move, and a thing that was broken would become a thing that was whole again. And you understand now, sitting where you are sitting today, that she was teaching you something far larger than how to reattach a button. She was teaching you that the people and the things you love do not get discarded the moment they tear. You sit with them. You take the time. You mend. Nothing was thrown away. Your Easter dress, when you outgrew it, did not disappear. It was taken in or let out, and it became your little sister's Easter dress. The good fabric from a dress that was past saving was cut down and became a collar or a pocket or a patch or a square in a quilt that would one day lie across a bed and keep a grandchild warm. A thing your mother had touched did not simply vanish from the world. It moved. It went from your body to your sister's body to a quilt to a memory. Your whole childhood was wrapped in fabric that had been loved more than once. Then the world changed the way it always does. The malls came. The fast fashion came. The stores filled up with cheap clothes made far away. A whole rack of dresses for the price your mother used to spend on a single good yard of wool. And it looked like freedom. It looked like progress. And in some real ways it was. Your daughter could walk into any store and try on anything she liked, in any fitting room, in front of any mirror, and no one could stop her. Your mother had wanted that for her. Your mother had sewn in the dark for years so that her granddaughter would never have to. But something slipped away in the trade, and it slipped away so quietly that nobody noticed until it was already gone. The singer went silent. It got moved to the basement, and then to a yard sale, and the cabinet became a plant stand in somebody's hallway. The church sewing circle got smaller, and then it was 4 women, and then it was a memory. The mending basket disappeared, because why mend a $5 shirt when you can buy another one? Home economics stopped teaching girls to sew, and 1 generation later, your granddaughter has a closet so full the door does not close, and she stands in front of it in the morning and says the words your mother never once said in her entire life. I have nothing to wear. She has nothing to wear because nothing she owns was made for her. Nothing she owns was sewn by hands that loved her. Nothing she owns can be made into anything else, or handed down, or mended, or turned into a collar, or saved in a cedar chest. She has 50 things, and not one of them has a story. And your mother had 9 dresses, and every one of them was a story, and that is the whole difference. And it is breaking your heart a little to finally see it so clearly. But here is what is also true, and you need to hear this part. The singer is not gone. It is in a basement somewhere, or in your sister's spare room, or it is yours, sitting under a folded blanket, waiting for you. Those machines were built to last 100 years, and they meant it. The patterns are still printed. Butterick and Simplicity and McCall's are still there. The skill is not lost. It is only sleeping, and skills do not die when they sleep. They wait. They wait the way your mother's machine is waiting right now for a foot to find the treadle again. You can pull it back. You can sit your granddaughter down beside you the way Miss Carter sat beside your mother, and you can put your hand over her hand on the fabric and you can guide it through. You can teach her to read a pattern. You can teach her that a fallen hymn is not a tragedy. You can make her one good dress, just one, sewn by your own hands, and she will wear it, and she will feel the difference, even if she cannot name it. She will feel what it is to wear something that was made for her, on purpose, by someone who loves her. No store can sell that. No store has ever been able to sell that. Your mother is gone now, most likely, if you are old enough to remember the sound of that treadle through the wall. But the lesson she sewed into you was never really about fabric. It was about refusing to let a hard world tell you what you were worth. It was about making beauty with your own hands when beauty was not offered to you for sale. It was about a dignity that no fitting room, no salesgirl, no store in any town in America could grant you or deny you because you carried it in your own 2 hands and you stitched it into everything you made. So find the machine, oil it, thread it. Sit your granddaughter down beside you on a quiet evening with the radio low. Put a piece of fabric under her fingers and begin. She will not understand, not for many years, what you are really handing her. She will think she is learning to sew. And then one day, when she is old and her own granddaughter is asleep down the hall, she will sit up late by the light of a single lamp with fabric moving under her hands. And she will finally understand. And the sound of that machine will travel through the wall, into the dark, into a child's dreams, and it will mean what it has always meant. Your mother is still awake, and everything in the world is safe. Did your mama make your Easter dress? Did you fall asleep to the sound of a sewing machine? Do you still have your grandmother's singer? Tell me what she made you. Tell me the dress you have never forgotten. I read every single comment.